Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about retro video games.
Mankind faces its greatest crisis, the appearance of a mysterious android life form. Its purpose and origin are unknown. Is it a new form of weapon? Or perhaps an invasion from some other world? They appear during winter, killing humans and infiltrating society by taking the place of their victims. Employing an artificial skin, they can sweat and even bleed. Part organic, part machine, they're almost impossible to distinguish from those they kill. As they steal their victims' bodies in order to take their place, these mysterious invaders become known as Snatchers.
Everyone's been talking about the latest Metal Gear Solid game lately, so I thought it was high time I jumped on the Kojima train to see what all the fuss was about. However, rather than go for something from the Metal Gear series, I thought I'd try something a little more rare. It's Snatcher. Snatcher was developed by Konami and created specifically by Hideo Kojima. Though it was released in Japan in 1988, it didn't come out in North America until much later, being released for the Sega CD in 1994. In Snatcher, you play as Gillian Seed, an amnesiac who has just started working for the anti-Snatcher task force, Junker. He has two goals: kill the biosynthetic Snatchers who are killing and posing as humans, and recover his lost memory. These two goals may just be related. It's a little difficult to classify this game into a single genre. Though it's often called an adventure game, it's really more of a visual novel with some light adventure elements and the occasional shooting segment. Snatcher gave an amazing first impression. The cyberpunk story was nicely explained and borrowed heavily from classics such as the Terminator and Blade Runner. The game looked good, the voice acting was competent, and the music was great. Now, the interface is a little dated, however, the game had me hooked and I was willing to look past a few mechanical annoyances. The game interface gives you a number of options in order to examine and interact with your environment. Everything is text-based, and you can select options like look or listen to check if there are enemies around. It's always a good idea to look everywhere to get the lay of the land and discover new objects or events. Near the beginning of the game, you get access to a navigator robot who can help you investigate objects and people, as well as let you save or use a vidphone. And the name of your robot? Well, considering who made this game, you can probably guess.
Metal, introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Pleased to meet you, Gillian. I am Metal Gear Mach 2. I am programmed to be your personal assistant.
Metal Gear? That's a pretty weird name.
Oh, he's cute.
Thank you.
There is some repetitiveness in the mechanics of the game. For example, to pick up an object, first you look around the room to spot it, then you look at it, then you get Metal Gear to investigate the object, then you have to look at it again in order to add it to your inventory. This took some getting used to. There are also a few sequences where you need to repeatedly look at or investigate every item in a room before an event is triggered. This was both time-consuming and rather frustrating. Snatcher has very few puzzles, as most of the challenge comes from being a thorough investigator and finding everything that can be found. However, there are a few parts where memory and problem-solving come into play, as you need to figure out passwords based on the information you know about a character.
Die, Junker!
Normal gameplay is broken up by the occasional shooting segment. These were fun in the beginning. I liked the segments where you were shooting Snatchers, as this usually just involved quick reaction and a few well-placed shots. The shooting sequences were meant to be done with the Justifier light gun. Unfortunately, I don't have one of these or a CRT TV that's set up, so I had to just use the regular controller. The controls are a little bit awkward. The targeting reticule always recenters itself on the center of the screen if you're not pressing anything on the D-pad, and I often found a lot of my shots just didn't go off. The shooting segments that featured insectors, which are spider-like robots, were much harder than the ones with Snatchers. The insectors are numerous and their movements erratic. One of the last shooting segments was an absolute nightmare, with enemies coming at you extremely fast. You can only take a handful of hits before you die, and to make things even more difficult, once you got through this segment, it was immediately followed up by another. If you died, you had to do them both over again. It took a good handful of attempts to get past it, which I eventually did by spamming the fire button so I wasn't so impacted by missed shots. One of the biggest joys of this game is all of the Easter eggs and in-jokes and things you can find by being observant. The game often breaks the fourth wall and even contains some secret messages from Kojima. A lot of the references can be found in the nightclub Outer Heaven, which itself is a reference. Here you can find characters from other Konami games and get a sense of how Kojima feels about some other games as well as some controversies around gaming. When mentioning the game Lethal Enforcers, there's a comment about the congressional hearings about video game violence in the early 90s. It goes on to say how the senators who led this crusade were later voted out of office by a landslide. This seems like a fictionalization of events, or maybe wishful thinking, as Joe Lieberman, the senator who led the hearings, stayed in office for quite some time, as did some of the other more vocal opponents of video game violence. Either way, I think Kojima makes his thoughts on the matter quite clear. There are little jokes and oddities everywhere, and it's really fun to try to discover them all.
I'm Gillian Seed. I've been assigned to Junker headquarters effective today.
Oh, you're Mr. Seed. Please forgive me. My name is Mika Slayton. I'm the administrative assistant and operator here at Junker headquarters. Very pleased to meet you.
I'd be remiss not to mention women in the game. From what I know about Kojima, I expected the treatment of women in the game to be a little off. From the very start, it's clear that Gillian is a total creepy pervert. You get the option to look at women or ask them out repeatedly. It starts out kind of amusing because Gillian is terrible at hitting on women, but soon it just becomes uncomfortable. Some of the women will even tell you your constant attention is making them feel awkward. This raises a question. Is Gillian written as a perv, or am I, the player, making him one? You don't have to be overly forward with all the women in the game. It is a player choice. However, it's not much of one. If you're a player with completionist tendencies or someone who seeks out all the secrets and scenes a game has to offer, you're gonna do whatever the game lets you do. If you don't, you might miss something. Gillian does often get called out on his lecherous ways. Once Metal Gear is in the picture, the robot will admonish you for being such a creep. But, at the same time, when it comes time to investigate an attractive woman character, the two of them will fight over who gets to do it.
Whoa!
You pervert! Get out of here!
You definitely had that coming to you.
Now, it is possible that Kojima is providing some commentary on how women are usually treated in video games. I don't think it's an accident that Gillian's advances tend to be both awkward and uncomfortable for the characters in the game and the player themselves. They were certainly uncomfortable for me. I think it's sort of a combination between Kojima liking to push players' buttons, as well as just enjoying sexy women. Either way, the fact that I've spent so much time thinking about the portrayal of women in this game rather than just being able to write it off as sexist means that he has succeeded in challenging at least some of his audience and has fostered some discussion. One thing I do like is that when Gillian seems to succeed at hitting on a woman, it usually backfires on him. One of my favorite responses to Gillian happens when you call into a phone sex line. The operator makes no allusions to how she feels and gives Gillian a big reality check.
What the? We've got no brakes!
Snatcher is an interesting game that rewards the observant. It delivers a good story, and the combination of video, audio, and text melts together into a very unique and engaging package. The only part where the story really falls down is at the end. And it's not that the conclusion or explanation is bad, but that it's delivered in a villain speech that lasted well over 20 minutes. Overly long cutscenes are another thing Kojima is known for, but I felt like the ending was really drawn out, especially considering the length of the overall game, which clocks in at only 6 to 7 hours. Snatcher is kind of a weird game. The interface is weak, the gameplay can be repetitive, and the shooting sequences have some sketchy controls. However, despite all this, I kinda still love the game. All of its little oddities and nods to its audience put a smile on my face, and I found myself engaged for the whole time, no matter how long the cutscenes were. It's a really well put together game, and definitely one of the most interesting ones that I've played lately. Now, there is some bad news. Snatcher did not sell very well in North America, meaning it's exceedingly rare right now. If you're looking to pick up a copy for yourself, you're probably looking in the ballpark of $400 if you're looking for the real thing on Sega CD.
You did great. You're a hell of a junker.
Now, I just wanted to mention that Snatcher is a game that lends itself very well to Let's Plays, since it's not the most interactive game around. If you can't pick up a copy for yourself, I'd suggest checking out one of those. Now, I did record the entire playthrough when I played it, so if anyone's interested in me editing and posting that at some point in the future, let me know. I mean, I'm sure there are other Let's Plays available, but if you want to see mine, I'd be willing to put that up. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.